Hey guys, we're back again. Aljitha.
I'm Chad.
And today we're talking about COVID-19 restrictions. Hey guys, so we're going to start things off by talking about how to get tested for travel. PCR versus rapid, and also which ones do airlines prefer?
Yeah, so when we went to our trip to Jamaica, we actually did both. We did some PCR tests and we did some rapid tests. It turned out that the rapid test that we actually ended up using was a rapid antigen test. We did the one before, but it was some issues, and we did the PCR, and they do accept that, but it takes like 3 days or so to get even the results, and we didn't have any time because we waited until the last minute. Well, you kind of do because you have to get it within 3 day period. The test has to be within that time. So you could do the PCR or you could do the rapid test, but if you're restricted by time, definitely go rapid. Just make sure the country you're going to, you get that specific rapid test needed. For Jamaica, it was antigen. Other countries might be different. And if you have enough time, do the PCR, even better. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, we went to Jamaica, but research whichever destination that you're going to. Each country has their own restrictions and timelines. So you want to do something, you want to get a test that the time frame works with whatever restrictions that you have to uphold. I would also say, I think that PCR is usually more accurate than rapid, but for a time's sake, as Chad mentioned, it usually takes 2 to 3 days. So if you're going to go with the PCR, make sure you do it well in advance. But if you need something quick and on the spot, rapid is the one you want to go for.
And if your insurance can pay for it, make your insurance pay for it. Yeah, definitely don't pay for it. If you can get insurance to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of them are good for that, especially during COVID time.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Especially in our case, because we went to like 4 or 5 different places trying to make sure we got the right one. And another thing I would say about the airlines, whether they accept them or not, one thing that helped us a lot was that we downloaded the airlines app and were able to upload the forms directly to the app, so we know beforehand, before going to the airport, whether it was accepted or if it would be rejected. So that was a big help in determining like which was the right test to get and if we need to go back and reschedule a test. So definitely download your airlines app.
Yeah, and that might save you, having to print out whatever paper if you at least just upload it through the app. If you have to print out a piece of paper of proof that you did your negative on the test, to have to just get out of that extra work.
Alright, so next we're going to talk about some of the places where you can get tested. So some places that you can go to, of course, your doctor's office. If you're trying to go get it done quickly, I would say it's better to go to an urgent care facility or a pharmacy such as CVS, Walgreens does it. Pretty much any pharmacy. You can just go online, or if you have the mobile app, and just look up, put your zip code, and you should be able to find any pharmacy within your area. And same thing goes for urgent care. They usually do it on the spot, so that's probably quicker if you're trying to get this for travel purposes versus making an appointment at your regular doctor.
True. Yeah, and like if you go to any of these places, my number one thing is, before I answer this, make sure your insurance, see if your insurance can pay for it first, because sometimes these can be costly. So make sure to check to see if your insurance can pay for it. Other thing is, if you're planning to go like to some trip to Aruba, Jamaica, whatever it might be, if you're comfortable with it, you can say, if you're comfortable, you can mention it to the staff that's gonna be doing that testing, and you can just tell them like, yo, does this test meet the qualifications needed for XYZ country, CDN or COVID restriction validation. So you can ask them that question if you're comfortable with it, with that. Ask like the doctor or whoever, or nurse. Or just check online. Most of these countries pretty much usually have the requirement for the specific COVID testing needed. But yeah.
And then the one thing I would add is you can also do at-home testing. So you can buy your own self-kit and then mail it in. But again, if time is a constraint, you might want to just go to urgent care or a pharmacy and get it done quicker. And also what Chad was mentioning about like insurance. Usually if you do an at-home test, it's going to cost you, so you might have to pay out of your own pocket. So it is an option, but probably urgent care or a pharmacy would be a better option.
What should you expect, like, when you actually go in for a COVID test? So it was actually our first time when we went to get our COVID test. That's the first time I've ever been there. So I just want to give you guys an idea of what to expect. And yeah, pretty much it's pretty quick. It's not major. It's no blood test or anything like that. It's pretty much just a quick nose swab. Yeah, and then you just wait and get a result.
Yeah, it's pretty quick, about like 10 seconds. It depends on what place you go to. Sometimes they swab both nostrils, other places only do one. Sometimes they'll do it for you, other times you can do it yourself. So it's whatever is comfortable or whatever is your standard practice at their facility. And it's pretty quick, a few seconds, and it doesn't take long to get the results back unless you're doing PCR. So then that'll be like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, it's like a little tickle in your nose, though, at least for me. But it's like a little tickle.
It's a little uncomfortable. It's kind of weird, someone putting a Q-tip up your nose, but I mean, it's not anything too crazy. So another thing that we wanted to talk about is COVID-19 tests when you're returning. So certain hotels and resorts will offer a complimentary test that comes along with your stay. It depends on where you're staying and what they offer, and not all places does that. And sometimes you'll have to find like a local healthcare provider in whatever country you're staying at. But number one, check with your resort first and see what kind of services they offer, and check to see if there's any costs associated with it or not. I know for us, when we stayed in Jamaica, it was offered to us as part of like the service that we got when we booked our stay. So going back, we didn't have to pay anything to get a COVID test prior to leaving Jamaica.
Yeah, and like that was both because we went international in Jamaica, of course, but like you might, it's not, I don't know if every country requires you to have to take a COVID test again before you leave. I just know Jamaica is really strict with that. So just make sure whichever country you're visiting, when you're about to leave, get that information first, because trust me, you don't want to wait until the last day and try to book a COVID test. And worse, like if you're not lucky, like a customer or your hotel doesn't give you complimentary, it's going to be really hard. So make sure you find that out. If you need to get vaccinated or a test before, sorry, not vaccinated, get a COVID test before leaving the country, because you don't want to end up being, if God forbid you have COVID and then you find that out on the last day when you're trying to leave, you don't want to end up getting stuck in a country or whatever issue that might cause.
I would also plan, just to piggyback off of that, if you're traveling, especially if you're traveling internationally, I would kind of account for that, kind of budget that into your trip. The factor, like maybe you could contract COVID and you might not be able to return to your home country at the same time. So you definitely want to be able, if you had to either extend your stay at your resort or find another hotel on maybe a different price range, something that's affordable and you can spend a few extra days before you can travel. So also consider that whenever you're planning your next trip.
Okay.
So another tip that I wanted to add was that even if you're not traveling internationally, let's say you're flying domestically, when you get back to your home, I would say just for general safety purposes, you should still get tested at either a local pharmacy or urgent care just to protect the people around you. I think that you should self-quarantine and then wait for your results to get back, because the last thing you want to do is contract COVID in another state and then bring it back to your loved ones. So just keep in mind that even if you're traveling domestically, you're not required to get a COVID test when you come back, but just for general safety, you might consider it.
Yeah, I remember, just like she said, you might get COVID and you beat it and you get over it, you get sick for a while and it'll be fine, but you could transmit that to somebody, a grandparent or whoever it is, and they might not be as lucky. So like you can't. You have to really think about others in that case. Like, don't just think like, oh yeah, you're young. All your friends are young. They'll beat it eventually. Think about your friends, relatives that when they go home, maybe they have a grandparent, or elder, whoever it might be. Maybe they work with older people. So you have to really be considerate with this.
And just to summarize some of the things we talked about in this video, so when you're traveling, you want to look up the restrictions for whatever country that you're going to and determine whether PCR or rapid is the best test for you. And also try to find a healthcare facility within your local area that offers the testing. And just remember, timing is everything, so you don't want to wait too late and have to scramble towards the end like we did.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And then also, one more thing, also download your airline app. That's going to be a lifesaver. So if you get the wrong test, at least you'll know up front versus going all the way to the airport 2 hours before your flight's supposed to take off. So download the app for whatever airline you're taking.
Yeah. All right, that's pretty much it.
All right, thanks for watching.
Okay.